Yeah, we're on.
Hello.
Yes, we're going. Oh, hello. Technical problems averted.
They don't know there were technical problems to avert.
Yeah, but they've been averted. I mean, it doesn't mean
Yeah,
anytime we're successfully streaming, aversion to the technical
yeah.
problem.
I, for one, welcome our new South African overlords.
I do. Cheers to South African overlords over here as we begin. All right. Whoa, whoa. That line never gets old. I, for one, welcome our new whatever hot topic is for the day. Just because it's a
And
nice
what is that
Simpsons
from? It's
reference.
The Simpsons, right?
It's a Simpsons reference, yeah. Where
The
like
robot
Homer's
overlords.
well, no, Homer's in space in the shuttle and accidentally breaks open the ants that they were studying, and the ants are all and they come onto the screens. They go live to like a live feed to the shuttle, and there's just giant ants, and everyone goes ah. So it shuts down, and like Kent Brockman is like, and I for one welcome our yeah. It's like surely we will all be toiling away in their sugarcane fields, and I for one welcome our new ant overlords. Yeah, so it's pretty good.
That's funny.
So I have a monthly reminder to check this beverage here. I made a honey wine. It's mead. So I've done this a few times before. I'm like 4 months into fermentation. It's pretty interesting. It takes a long time for it to. It's like takes a year for it to get ready.
Yeah. So
But
you
I don't
could
know.
pretend like you're some sort of medieval knight or something drinking mead.
Yes, or a Viking. I need to get a horn to drink out of, and
Yeah.
a QAnon shaman helmet would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you could get like a cup that has horns on it, right? So it's a little like.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I gotta look for that. That'll be my uncorking day. I like that idea.
So I'm
So
gonna be
yeah,
coughing,
man.
coughing a lot. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I've been coughing for weeks. I'm like, don't have a cough now. We've swapped out spots.
Yeah.
So I have thoroughly enjoyed the freak out over Elon Musk buying Twitter. Like I enjoyed the
Yeah.
lead
It's
up
been
to
very.
it.
It reveals a lot about people.
It's crazy town. Like I've never heard the term apartheid baby thrown around so often, but I guess that's an insult if you were born in a country where apartheid was like that's his fault, I guess. But
I suppose
maybe
South
it is.
Africa might be the only country in the world where whiteness is more of a curse than here. At least in terms of the
Good point.
conversation. I mean, not like it's an actual
Yeah.
curse. I'm not, you know what I mean? But like, where
Understand.
like immediately being white. I mean, in the eyes of wokeness, the only thing worse than a white person from America is a white person from South Africa, right?
That's probably true, actually. So he's got the worst of all the worlds. All of them.
I mean, Sean King was calling him a white nationalist.
I know. Yeah. No. He's definitely a Nazi white supremacist. There's just no way around it because Elon Musk has definitely said Nazi white supremacy kind of things.
Yeah, because
all
the only
time.
right, it's like if you are not on board with whatever the current version of anti-racist is, then
Yeah.
you're not just in the middle, you're way on the other side, right? So
And yeah, you're right. He does. Yeah, obviously he does talk shit about woke stuff, but also he supports the idea of people that are widely considered white supremacist, also with no real evidence or reason behind it. He supports their ability to speak and to be part of the public conversation. God forbid.
yeah.
I mean,
It's
whatever.
all-
White supremacy. Good. Yep.
Well, what's funny is that like, what does it say about people when they're that afraid of bad people saying their piece, right?
Yeah, man.
It's almost like somebody like Musk or people like us who are like kind of into free speech and if we kind of all feel like, well, look, like let them say their talk and it'll be clearly revealed that it's stupid, right? If we can have an open and honest debate, then all the cracks in their logic will be revealed, right? So I'm not terribly worried about it. But the other side doesn't seem to believe that. They seem to think that it's one of two things. One, there's actually apparently some sort of merit to these bad arguments that people will be inescapably drawn into the vortex of,
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
can't help
Okay.
if I but hear a white supremacist rant from some person, then I will have no
Yeah.
choice but to be drawn in by the siren song of bigotry, right?
Mhm.
Or they just think everybody's stupid, right? They think everybody's so dumb that they'll just be, enraptured by all of these horrible ideas. And the only solution is not to combat it with smart ideas or moral ideas, but to just silence things.
Right.
Right. So it's kind of one of those, either the argument is solid and it appeals to regular normal people, or the argument is not solid, but everybody's too stupid to realize it. So in either case,
Yeah.
it's kind of like got some scary implications, right? It's like,
Yeah. I mean, if that is
you're
what you
that
think.
afraid of somebody, it's like, well, I don't know. It sounds like you think maybe there's some pretty good points that you don't want people to hear.
Yeah, that or you're so like black pilled that you just think the populace can be swayed on a dime, like you said, or not, or maybe just not that they're too stupid, but that, well, yeah, I guess the arguments are that good. I mean, you're right. That is the only kind of two ways to look at it, and well, yeah, I get a little bit of it though, because like the country is so split, across some pretty stark lines. You'd be like, where it's easy to see the one side and the other side as evil, wrong, bad. So you're like, how in the hell can that person believe that? And I have that feeling too. Like I think that about a lot of stuff. I'm like, where do you come getting all that kind of
Yeah,
all that
but I mean, but
gobbledygook
I
in
don't
your
think,
mind?
but I don't think that these people, like, I don't think your radical leftists are on the same wavelength of insanity as like actual right wing, like neo-Nazi type people. I think that for the most part, most of the people, even the blue check, blue haired, Twitter mob people, I think they're probably generally decent people who are just kind of caught up in their own little bubble of buzzwords, and they just haven't really
Yeah, maybe.
experienced enough of the world. So, but I don't think that they're like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's that harmful and dangerous like white supremacy is. To the point where I would think that this speech has to be banned.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you mean by more harmful and dangerous, but of white supremacy. I mean, obviously,
Well, it's just your garden
in
variety
20
Marxism in a different clothing, right?
I know, but that leads to some pretty deleterious shit. So,
Well,
I mean, like white supremacy 60 years ago, I would say was definitely a more dangerous speech avenue, and more well received and more deleterious to our society. Nowadays, that's such a small, infinitesimally small, like
Yeah, I think
segment of the
white
population.
supremacy is a species that has outlived its natural selection. I think, like,
But however, the phraseology is still thrown out there. I mean, it's like racist in the 80s and 90s. It's lost all of its real chutzpah.
well, right. I mean,
Everyone's-
yeah, what people call white supremacy now is not the same thing as old school white supremacy, right? But they just use it because
So
it
that's
sounds
another.
scary.
Yeah, I know. Again, I agree. So maybe I was trying to split hairs there, but yeah, for sure. Like, so it is really striking that if you're of the camp where the only way to fight oppositional ideas is to silence them. So also, the third thing could be that you feel so insecure about your ideas that you feel like the only way to get them
Right.
enforced is by censorship. In the main, you know what I mean? Not real censorship, but blocking ideas that you don't like and hiding from the public.
Right. Like you're a really conservative parent, in like a small town, and it's like, well, right, like the conservative. Okay, so the parent who is not afraid about their teenagers going off doing whatever is
Right.
naive, because that parent is unobservant of the actual pull that the world and having fun and being your own person has on a teenager, right? But the really strict parent is that way because they know that these ideas are attractive.
Could
Right.
be, yeah. Yep.
So, like a real strict free speech, anti-free speech Nazi type person is
Right.
is basically giving credence to the ideas that they're trying to. They're saying with their censorious attitudes that there is merit to this idea.
Yeah, which I guess goes to your first point that people are going to be swayed by the idea.
Yeah.
Or
Whereas
or
free speech
yeah,
absolutists say, well, the most abhorrent ideas that we have as a species, there's no merit to them. And so we're not really
right.
that scared because as long as you have a public discourse, the antidotes, right? Like the counter arguments to those ideas are going to get
Right.
said.
Yep. And then right, so that's a really good analogy, I guess, because like if you're the kid that goes out and you're allowed to experience or be around that world, you go, all right, so I've been told this about what's probably the right way to go from what my parents say. They allow me this freedom to experience the outside world here.
Within reason.
So within reason, yeah. So then you get to go, all right, so do I do this or do I do this? I get to see those kind of things. You're like, okay, you can make up your own mind. And hopefully you're a reasonable, rational adult that does things.
Yeah, hopefully you get through your teens and 20s without doing anything too stupid that has permanent consequences.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, we're not saying, but like free speech is kind of like that. Free speech is like, it's just speech, right? It's not saying that like, it's telling people, hey, look, you're probably going to be exposed to some Nazi stuff, some weird communist, anarchist, weirdo stuff, people who want to burn all the system down. You're going to be exposed to some of that. No, but it's just words, though, right? So we're not sending people to say, hey, it's part of you. It could be good for you to understand what Nazi. Why don't you go to that rally? Yeah, put on the hood. Yeah, go experience it. No, we're not telling people to do that. We're just saying like listen to what these right. So like that's the version of like allowing your teenagers like, oh yeah, go hang with your friends.
Right.
All right, you can drive, but let me know where you are. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. That's a pretty apt analogy. I like it.
So
it doesn't get
I guess
us anywhere.
Okay, so what these people are doing is they're being the version of the parent that is so afraid of the outside world that they keep their children. They want to keep them sequestered in the house the whole life.
Yes.
Right until they're 18 or 20.
Except the children is the rest of society.
Right, but then until they grow up and they go to, Liberty or somewhere, or I don't know, or they're just like they go to some crazy party school and then they're just insane, and they're like I never heard any of this, and then they go crazy off the deep end.
Well, see, the insanity of it is just like so if on just that one media outlet, so you have Twitter. If you were to ban, like you said, you got Alex Jones banned, you ban Donald Trump, you ban Milo Yiannopoulos, you ban like Alex Berenson, Babylon, the satire site. You got to ban satire. I mean, that stuff's all still out there. Like there's the futility of it is so stupid.
It's like like being like the cool parent who's like, look, I don't care if you have a drink, just have with the, it's like you want to have a puff of cigarette. Why don't you experience it in a safe environment with us?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, then they're going to go out and drink with their friends and get wasted. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, like these people are so myopic and stupid that they're just like, all right, so they felt safe having this bulwark there in this one media outlet, and then, but they're not safe in reality. There is no safety. Like the ideas are all still out there, and they're all still just as popular as they've ever been.
They're on the dark web.
Exactly. So now that you take away the supposed check, this barrier, now the floodgates are opened. Now society's going to crumble. They're like, oh, come on. We're talking like 3-4 years ago. Twitter was like this. Like the shit really only started piling on after Hillary Clinton got her ass handed to her by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason. So I mean, so what was that? 2016. So yeah, now 6 years ago. Well, whatever. But
who was this? The one guy who was like, they're like, what is going to happen here? Here's what you have: one person who's in control of this thing. What are they going? They're going to start like banning the opposite political candidates. They're going to start limiting the reach of message people.
They're
going to start shadow banning people, and it's just like, are you paying attention at all?
Yeah,
like
dude,
that's literally.
I don't know. I don't know who that human being was. I saw that video though, but I have no idea who that guy was. And like, yeah, obviously everyone's things like, what are you talking about? Like, is this satire? Like, are you joking? Are you trolling us right now? You are gaslighting. But yeah, that's the insanity, dude. I can't believe that guy believes that. There's no freaking way. But maybe.
I don't know. Maybe it's in certain bubbles. People just get used to repeating phrases. It's their own little religion. So yeah, I don't know.
Man, yeah. I mean,
the follow instinct is strong with a lot of people. We've all been there at one point in our lives, right? So
yeah, for sure. I mean, but we've seen it so much in this past couple of years too with the COVID stuff. I mean, you still get people every now and again, like everyone, not everyone, but there's a handful of people flipping out when the when the masks on the airlines were dropped. It's like, but
Yeah.
the federal government was thinking about doing that in 2 weeks anyway. So it wasn't like they it doesn't matter. Like again, it's this fake safety thing that people have, and then they feel good about it, even though it really doesn't do anything for them. And then once it's gone, then a certain percentage of the population is freaking out about it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to look. Okay. A couple of points on this. It'll be interesting to like think back to like, is this going to be like a watershed moment in the, the history of like big tech vis-a-vis politics, or like the free speech experiment of America? Like, are we going to look back onto like Elon Musk buying Twitter as like a turning point where something changed in some direction? We're not really sure exactly, right? And it's like, most of my intuition says that like, well, compared to what we have now, and can only be a good thing, right? If he does what he's claiming to do and he doesn't go off on some power trip, in some other direction, then yeah, I mean, we think it's a good thing, and maybe that'll filter in. People will see that this is a valuable thing for society, and it'll filter into other areas, and then culturally we'll start to normalize a heterodox kind of actual liberal democracy here, and then maybe we'll get somewhere, right? Or are we going to look back in 20 years and be like, this is the time when the tyrant came to power? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not the kind of, I don't put all my faith in a person, right? I mean, as far as I can tell, Elon Musk is a pretty solid dude, right? To me, he hasn't done anything that indicates that he wants like power over people, right? Like, he's got a lot of money. Mm-hmm. He's the richest man in the world. He does a lot of stuff. He builds things. But he doesn't want to control people, as far as I'm aware. Like, he's not trying to like, his whole point of buying Twitter was to make it more open and free. Mm-hmm. So that's, he's not just some tech tyrant who just wants to absorb all companies in his, like the Blob or something, and he's not even Trump, who just, likes the idea of people telling him how great he is. So, he's an uber nerd. He's the Ubermensch ultimate nerd who likes, So, and not to say he's perfect, but like up to this point, he hasn't demonstrated that he's necessarily like the Antichrist or something. But he's still a human being,
Sure.
So anybody given the right, I mean, Grant, if he was going to feel like you're already the richest person in the world, surely he would have revealed his true colors by now. If he actually was an evil, despot, maniacal madman.
Yeah. I mean, look,
I feel like we would have seen that by now.
I mean, his last two ventures is like, you know what? I'm going to go to space. And I'm going to do it with a little bit of help from the federal government, but like nobody else is doing it. So let's do that. Let's keep that going. And then now he's keeping the electric car thing going and improving upon that, which are all, I mean, space, you can argue, is a tangential benefit to mankind. It's a exploration thing. It's a source.
I mean, I'd argue it has huge implications, but not right now necessarily. But
weightlessness of screws in space. You're just like Homer Simpson with the ants. You're gonna bust them open. There's gonna be chips everywhere. Buzz Aldrin's almost gonna die. That's what's gonna happen. No, whatever. I could care less. But point being, I don't think the government should be paying for it. But I'm glad he's doing it with the help. But then again, point being, all of his business ventures seems pretty benevolent and money making and just general service to society kind of stuff. So I see no. Like you said, I don't see.
I mean, he's an objectivist wet dream, right? He's the ultimate Ayn Rand Ubermensch.
I'll give you that. Yeah,
right. Like he would be the person that a hardcore Ayn Rand devotee would point out and be like, see, this is what happened when you let the truly exceptional people do what they're going to do. It benefits everyone. It's trickle down exceptionalism or something.
Sure. Yeah, whatever, dude. And I see like uber libertarians be like, I don't think I can trust Elon Musk, man. I've heard him say some pretty nice things about China. Like, well, yeah, because his cars these are parts that come from China. He's not going to talk shit about China.
Well, I think China isn't one person.
Right, exactly. I mean, China's still cool, Dan. Come on.
You know what I mean? Like, the Chinese government is not the same thing as like the Chinese people.
Right. Or even like the stuff I was saying, like, the SpaceX stuff. They're like, oh yeah, well, SpaceX, great. Of course, they get like federal grants and they work with the federal government. And I was like, well, yeah, of course they do, because like that's the people who have been going to space for the last freaking 80 years. So like I
don't really have a problem with the federal government funding space travel. I mean, it's pennies on the dollar compared to like your tax dollars. You
Oh
know,
yeah, all things being equal, just everything's pennies on the dollar. That's why it adds up to $40 trillion in debt or something like that. But yeah, I agree with you in that sentiment for sure. Can you point to me in the Constitution where the government's supposed to go to space, Dan? No, you can't. But that's okay because the government's a useless piece of paper.
we
So
got
it
to
doesn't
go to
really matter.
space before the Ruskies get to space.
Oh, never mind. You have me sold. Yeah. If we had only done that sooner, they wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. Putin would have been neutralized. Crisis averted.
If we had allowed the space laser program, we could have
Ooh.
taken them out before they even got to Ukraine.
I want to know what happened on the space station. Obviously, there's been a rift up there. So we were all getting together up in space, floating around. Some shit went down, and now it's no bueno. It's not good. It was probably Twitter. They probably got into Twitter arguments with each other.
Yeah,
That's
they're all
what
sitting
happened.
there floating around in the space station. They're like, beep.
Yeah. So I mean, right off the bat, like nothing's gonna really change at Twitter. Like I'd be super interested if he actually makes good on like making the algorithms like kind of public so people can like dig through that and see how that kind of stuff works. And
Yeah, what
I mean,
horror! Open source algorithms.
I know, right? I mean, like, so I mean, it seems like right off the bat though, if
It's
people
like a new teacher. A new teacher comes into your class and there's like, look, I'm going to lay it out right here. Here's how your grades are going to be calculated at the end of the semester. And all the people are like, no, you can't be doing that.
yeah, no joke. It's just more information. It's more transparency, and that seems like if that's what he does, that's a good thing. So, I mean, apparently people are already back, which I don't understand. I guess the people he must have some help on the inside. Like people's whose accounts have been gone are already back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Well, I've been thumbing through Twitter pretty hard for the last 27 hours. So.
Yeah, I'm just a total outside observer. I never look at Twitter. I don't even.
I like Twitter. I use it a lot. Well, I read it a lot. I don't use it for anything, but it's just a interesting look into everybody's psyche here. It's crazy. Sorry, go ahead. You're gonna say
No, I mean, yeah, it makes you wonder about like people in their. They get so caught up in their own. It's like they're following somebody so blindly, not necessarily somebody in this case, but like a movement so blindly that, and they're so convinced that the other side is the enemy.
Right.
That like you could say the sky is blue and they'd be like, their head would explode.
Yeah, like you saw some, whatever, like what was stupid. I think it literally was like a lib of TikTok video. And like this person's like, you know what? This is it. I'm done. I'm taking off. I'm done. I'm deactivating my Twitter. Elon Musk or whatever I don't even know how to say his name, but I will not be on the site if he's. Oh, it's like you don't even know the person's name, and like you can't even say his name, and you're like, oh, he's the devil incarnate.
That's the I'm moving to Canada if Trump gets elected.
Yes, thank you. And no one ever does that. I think the only person to ever move out of the country was literally Johnny Depp. So kudos to him.
That's apropos.
It didn't really work out well. Yeah. Well, that was late. I think that was George Bush, though. Yeah. I think for a while there in the aughts, he lived in France or something. I don't remember.
He's had a rough go of it the last few years.
Yeah, I haven't followed that at all. But from what I understand is things were not good in that household. So
I don't really know the details because I don't really get into like celebrity tabloid stuff. But
yep.
If that woman gets like a fine or some jail time or something, I'm gonna do a little happy dance.
I don't even know what's the legal. Excuse me. What's the challenge? Why are they in court? Over what?
If I had to guess, I don't think it's your garden variety divorce disagreement. I think she charged him with domestic violence. Said he hit her and said he was violent and stuff. And of course, the media jumped on her side because, of course, believe women hashtag.
Right.
Yeah. And then it came out later, and he was like, "Well, actually, she's insane, and here's why." And so now they just finally got their court date, and all the dirty laundry about her is coming out.
So it's literally a domestic dispute court kind of thing that is now national television because it's celebrities.
Right. Now, I don't know if he's suing her for ruining his reputation. I mean, he probably has grounds to do that, right? Because
probably so.
I mean, there needs to be this could be a whole can of worms, right?
Yeah.
About like this is I mean, I'm sort of working my way towards like writing a long thing about it, but it's like this is the when in 2018 when people said believe women, and and we're like all of them, you know what I mean? Like
even the crazy bitches.
I mean that's my Bill Burr quote for the day because he has this whole bit about it where it's like believe them. He's like all of them. I'll give you like 85, 87%, right? But that last little bit, the ones that key your car, put your pet in the stew, like. All of them, like people don't just make stuff up. They don't make stuff up, Bill. He's like, did you see Star Wars? People made that shit up. So anyway, but it's true though, right? Like, because people were saying it's like, well, people make stuff up, man. They're crazy, and they're like, people wouldn't make something up that's traumatizing. It's like, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
And this is like the penultimate example. You know what I mean? It's like the story about the sort of the fake trans dude who was going into the girls' showers in Virginia. Remember from last year that all the parents that there was a whole brouhaha. It was like because the parent of his daughter who was like assaulted in some way. I'm not entirely sure.
In the high school in the high schools.
Yeah, because there was a boy who was sneaking into and he was trying to claim that he's like, oh, I'm actually a trans or whatever.
Right.
And the school board was trying to sweep it under the rug, and the guy got like verbally angry and stuff at the school board meeting. And then the Justice Department started piling on and be like, we can't have these parents in the PTA meetings.
Yeah, you gotta get the FBI involved. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, but that's like example because like people were saying that when the trans movement started to pick up steam, the sensible people in the middle were kind of like, look, nothing against anybody. There are personal choices here. That's fine. But like, there are some realities to like, there's bathrooms and locker rooms and stuff. Right. People's like, that's just a straw man. That doesn't really happen. And then it didn't happen. Did. So this is an example of like where we say like, well, maybe there's some troubling implications to believing an entire group of people over another group of people, carte blanche, because human beings are fallible. And they're like, no, that's not the way it works. And I'm like, well, now somebody shit the bed on that one. So literally,
quite literally, yes. Sidebar on that, and we don't have to really go down this rabbit trail if you don't want to, but like, I'd always kind of had this in my head, and I don't mean this from like a civil libertarian sort of way. Like, I don't really care what happens from the legality of it, insofar as people can be equal under the law, and I don't think marriage actually has anything to do with the government at all. They shouldn't be involved at all. But like when you take like when the term marriage was changed, I mean, really, it was changed from a man and a woman to a man or a man and a woman. So you've now taken that, so you've taken that word, and it's meant something forever because that's the meaning of the word. And then you want to change it and say, no, anyone can get married. Like, okay. So people are just like, well, that's a slippery slope. All sorts of crazy shit's going to happen from that. Now you're right.
Who's to say some man can't marry his dog? I seen a guy who really loves his dog. I bet he'd marry him and give him a chance.
Like, so now you're going to tell me that a woman with a penis in a female prison is going to impregnate two chicks. You're like, that sentence wouldn't make sense in 2014, but that sentence makes a lot of sense right now because like some transgender female just impregnated two women in a prison. It's just like, okay, all right, here we are. So we're just like we're past like words having meaning. I'm not saying that's the only example. Just like that's just one of those slippery slope things. You know what I mean? But we don't have to. Again,
no, it is tricky from a rights perspective, because there's the sort of the logical part, the what's the word I'm looking for? The common sense, like the sort of conventional wisdom part of the brain that's kind of like, it's a little crazy, it's men. We know what men are, we know what women are, right? Marriage, it's been the same way for all this time, and that's sort of a conservative outlook on it. And then it's like, okay, but like if you're looking at it from like maybe a libertarian rights perspective, like, well, technically, wouldn't the ability to use language in the way that you choose be the ultimate personal freedom? Right? So, like, there's a libertarian, just in the same way that there's a weird libertarian case for abortion, right? And there's strong libertarian cases for like all kinds of legalized drugs and stuff like that. Things that are that typical conservative thought considers to be moral bads, right? And so, I guess one way of looking at it would be like, all right, if a person or persons wants to define their particular relationships or their personhood the way they choose, all right, they're free to do so.
Yep.
Right. But then the limit on that is like, well, but then, yes, the intensity of their freedom to do so is great, but it also comes up against the intensity of my freedom to not necessarily have to do what they want me to do, which is speak in a certain
Yes.
way or endorse them institutionally in a certain way.
And here's where the real wedge comes in. The wedge comes in is when government gets involved and says we're going to pick a side
For
So-
moral reasons.
No, for any reason.
Well,
really.
but it makes it even more kooky when the government's like,
Oh, okay. Yeah, it would make
right when the
yes,
government
it's
starts
worse.
making moral justifications.
So
Then it just
like
gets really
if,
subjective.
so like if say in 2014 marriage had nothing to do with the government, and like there was just people that said, you know what, we decided we're going to get married, and they found a church or they found a system that allowed them to get married or a community that recognized that kind of thing, that wouldn't matter. What it matters is like when you say, okay, so now it's legal, so now everyone who does anything in the public sphere that has anything to do with marriage has to recognize this, has to subsidize it and or utilize their time and their facilities and their spot for it. And if you don't go along with it, you are now you've done a hate crime. So now you have this wedge that goes, as opposed to live and let live, it's live and let and then bludgeon. If you don't, there's no live and let live. It's live and let bludgeon, because that's what the state does. It's just it takes a hammer and it beats the living shit out of your opponent with it. So that's just a bad way for humans to interact, and that's how we do it.
So
don't do it.
So like, what happens if so the government gets out of marriage? How do you start?
Yeah.
How do you do divorces from that point? Right.
Well, it's
like,
whatever you guys contractually agree to.
right. So
Yeah, like it's nonsense that just like,
who gets to screw who over? You know what I mean? It's like,
well, oh yeah, man, I'm not gonna get into all that. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, so at that point, it's a contractual agreement.
because now you're talking about property ownership and like
Yep,
all
I agree.
kinds of like.
yeah. But that stuff's handled right now through all sorts of legal means, and like legal means.
Yeah, but
doesn't
it's enforced
necessarily
with the government.
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, the common law and legal stuff can be enforced without the hand of the court. But either way, look, I mean, if you want to use a real baseline, what's the function of government? To enforce contracts, to protect property, and that's kind of it.
So the way
you know
to
what I
do
mean?
it would be then. Okay, so what you're saying is that marriages would be essentially contracts between two persons that are
Yeah.
that the
Right.
terms of which can be defined however those two people choose to define them.
Yeah, and you can call it anything you want to.
And so the government's job is only to make sure that the two people adhere to the terms.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay. So in that case, if you want to marry somebody, you got to find a lawyer and get draft up some legalese. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Well,
in
I mean,
the event of the dissolution of said contract.
well, yeah, but I mean, think about it. Like, what's like the common law marriage thing? Like, okay, so the one spouse dies, the other spouse gets everything. You know, like that's pretty common, right? Or like, I mean, it gets more complicated when there's divorce and there's split property and stuff like that. But like, generally, for the grand history of humanity, it's you're married, you share assets. When one person dies, they get the other.
There's also power of
now-
attorney and stuff like that.
Right.
If somebody's incapacitated, then you got insurance dependents and stuff.
Sure. So I mean, there's all sorts of ways to work it out, and I'm just using that one like as the death of a spouse as one common law example. It's kind of a presumed thing that happens. So like, I would think like a general marriage contract, be like, here's like what generally happens in your marriage, and here's the things that can happen. It's like a 5-page document, if that, like if this and that. It's like a living will. Like you can go to any lawyer. They're
It's
gonna
like
have
signing a waiver to go on a roller coaster.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
In the
yeah.
event that you should perish.
I mean, I'm just saying, and like
Any
there would be a
sunglasses lost.
I would think there would be a standard thing that would cover 99% of all marriages in all scenarios. But then you can go, here's our special situation. We need you as a professional to help us write this kind of thing up. You know what I mean? If that's the route you want to go, there's no saying you have to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I again, it's a private situation. Sorry, a private solution to a problem, which I think would be beneficial for everybody. But then,
Yeah.
so then, if that were the case, if that were the world we lived in, there's a lot of ifs, which we don't. So it's a staring at our navel gazing here. We're just doing bullshit arguing. So like back to like the trans thing. So what? Who cares if somebody wants to use a different bathroom, or who cares if somebody wants to block somebody to not use the bathroom, like in North Carolina? If the government's not involved in making people use public accommodations, be like, okay, so you have a restaurant, so therefore, if you don't do this, now you're in violation of civil ordinances and you've committed a hate crime. Like, Well, that's bullshit. I mean, if I want to have a male and a female bathroom, I can do that in my business. That's not a
Yeah.
hateful thing to do.
Right. I
But
also haven't really
it
seen.
was.
I mean, here's I
Or was it? Like it was mostly
well, there's
a
different
non-issue.
situations, right? Like if I go to like I play some of these restaurants and some like fancy places and like that, and they have like men and women signs on both bathrooms, and you go in there and it's fine, right?
Like
It really
99% of restaurants, but yeah.
the people who really lose out are the women, right? Because now they have to go into restrooms that both men have right? And it's like,
Oh,
yeah,
well,
this
I
is
don't
a
know, dude.
disaster.
I've been to some female restrooms in the bathroom and like rest stops where I'm like, well, that one's closed. I'm going to this one. I'm gonna
Yeah.
lock the door.
Or
like
if
a single stall.
Yeah, or like a
Yeah.
bar at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
It looks like a ticker tape parade in there, but
Right.
yeah. Okay, but like that's different than like a Target. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
But
Yeah.
again, but whatever Target wants to do, like I could think it's stupid. And like if I felt like it was a
If
real
it's that
threat for
important
my
to you
kid,
to have separate bathrooms, you can go to Walmart or Kohl's or
right,
something.
exactly. Or if I was super worried about it, I'd be like, listen, we can't let our daughter go into them.
I don't like my kids going into Target bathrooms regardless.
That's a good
It
point.
has nothing
Yeah.
to do, right? Like I'm just like
Like-
you can poop at home, okay?
Yeah, my kids are like 7 and 9, and I'm just being like, yeah, just go to the bathroom. It's got to be a place I know. I'm not just like, yeah, go across this random ass store and find the bathroom. You'll be fine. Like, no, I'll
you
walk
don't know
you
what
over
you don't
there.
know what the situation is in there. It could be a war zone.
I did it, dude. Yeah. No, I did it the other day. Like, I was at the checkout at Walmart, and like my daughter had to go to the bathroom, but I could see the bathroom from where
That's
I was at. I was like, go for it. I got a whole line of groceries here. I can see you. I was like, if you're not out in 30 seconds, I'm gonna come and yell in that door. And she's like, okay. So she went, and it was fine. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like I wasn't comfortable with it. I was comfortable enough, but like it gave me pause. I was just like, you can't just go in there.
It's probably a good formative experience for children to like know that like, away from home bathrooms are a roll of the dice. It could be a really nice, it could be a nice Starbucks bathroom, or it could be a Walmart experience. You don't know. So that always teaches you before you leave wherever you're going, whether it's home or whether it's the office or school.
Squeeze it out, man.
Know
Yeah,
where the quality bathrooms are. Yeah. Yeah. If I'm driving around, I'm like, all right, where's a Wegmans?
Yeah, no, my work driving route, I have regular bathroom stops if I need it. I know which ones I want to go to,
Yeah.
but I can kind of make it happen. But all that to circle back around, I don't remember talking about, just redefining things and I don't know, whatever. We kind of cut off on a little tangent there. But
Yeah. No, redefining language.
yeah, I mean,
That's the new thing.
right, but then that kind of leads back into like misinformation and disinformation, and this is stuff that needs to be banned because you have now because like now if you're saying things that are against the public, affinity for whatever the way the language is going, you're considered a bigot or you're considered a crazy person. Be like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't. Again, Twitter's now privatized, so whatever, it was always privatized, but meaning like it wasn't government, but like so now there's going to be hopefully a more level playing field, and like maybe that's why that's a problem because like again, people are getting away. They're used to the idea in a conflict you can appeal to a higher authority, and that authority can beat down your opponent and keep you safe. So like
Right.
you can appeal.
So like
you can
if
appeal
you're
to the
if you're
government.
playing dodgeball in PE class and somebody pegs you in the face,
Yeah.
like you play harder in PE dodgeball, knowing that there's a higher power that could intercede should things get rough, right? Whereas if you were playing like, parking lot down the street in the alleyway dodgeball, you're like, hold on, okay, I gotta know who I'm playing against because I don't want things to get weird.
Maybe so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess what I was saying is.
I took that way too far, but you know what I mean.
No, that's not a bad way to look at it. What I'm saying is like people are used to a scenario where they have someone above them that in theory is there to protect them, can write laws, can write policy, can write rules to to make society right. And the way you do that though it really is via force. Like with the way the government does it. So this Twitter thing where they were using Twitter, they're using the algorithms, they're using the terms of service, they're using their policies, they're using that force, quote unquote, in this particular realm to blanket out the opposition, to blank out the threat. So now that that force is either lessened or gone, they are now freaked the fuck out. It's like it'd be like the government collapsing tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
It's a classic moral panic. I mean, this is one of those things that we've talked about before.
It is a moral panic. Yes.
The right wing has been there, done that, lost these battles.
Oh yeah.
Decades past, right? Over who knows how many issues. And so because the right was for a long time synonymous with power, right? Like I mean, for a variety of reasons, like demographic reasons, right? Like white Caucasian males. That's redundant, but you know what I mean, right? So the left wing was typically the underdogs in a lot of ways, and so we're seeing a unique period in history where the left is the mainstream, and right wing is the underdogs, and so we're seeing that like it wasn't the anti-freedom parts of previous history, had less to do with the specific opinions of what the right wing was trying to do, and more about the fact that when you put people in power, they're going to abuse it.
They're going to use it. Yep.
I agree. And that's right or left. So the right lost those battles. They're like, we got to censor all this stuff and not let these people, and these are bad influences. And, the heavy metal's satanic. And
video games and music. Yep.
Yeah, there's marijuana dealers and it's a gateway drug and all this kind of stuff. All these moral panics that turned out to be just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Right. And they lost those battles and they paid for it by a lot of people abandoning those institutions like the church or conservatism or whatever. And so now the left is doing the same thing. They're doing moral absolutes. They're doing black and white things. So you're either part of the group or you're bad.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, yep.
And my prediction is that they're going to realize that doesn't really, a lot of people don't like that. Yeah. Even if the ideas that you're espousing are technically nice things, right? Like on its surface, anti-racism. Well, of course, that sounds like something I have to agree with, right?
Right.
But if you do it in such a draconian way, people are naturally going to rebel against that. So you can't. You're not going to win elections on. Well, you might win some elections on morality, on just pure. You know what I mean? Like this is the right thing to do. Everybody else is bad, but I don't think that works long term. Because ultimately people want freedom.
Yeah, gosh, and it's funny that the right, the conservatives, the Republicans are now trying to kick some ass on a legislative stuff. So like just Florida is an example, like with the what they just did with Disney. Like they stripped Disney of their special privileges. Like they actually did that.
Yeah.
Which I'm still really unclear what the privileges were, because it sounded like Disney had to front the bill for the entire huge 80,000 square acres they had whatever, which I guess
my understanding is that it basically removed them having to rely on government bureaucracy to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So like roads, water management, and
they paid for it all.
Yeah, and like their own security, all this kind of stuff. So I mean, I don't know if I like the idea of, I don't know.
Oh, well, two things. So I don't like the idea of cracking down on that. I think every little neighborhood should have their own complete autonomy if they want it. But regardless, my whole point is that so now you got the Florida government cracking down on what they're really taking it to the woke stuff in Florida. So with the I can't remember the actual name, because the only name that's ever reported is the Don't Say Gay bill, that one.
Yeah.
And then the thing with Disney, which is related to that. So, but just that idea that now the Republicans are trying to go back on the offensive, legislatively, and trying to take over
strategically, it's a smart move because it's at least they're doing something, but I also don't, it's a clever chess move, but I still resent the idea that we have to play chess to begin with.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I was going to get at. So they're finally taking a step into the realm where the left was happy to do it. They would legislate companies all the time and do.
They have no qualms using the arm of government to.
No, not at all. So now that they're doing that, though, I've seen a bunch of conservative people be like, "Well, look, man, this is what you get." So this is you push back so hard, eventually, the other side of the aisle is going to start using the mallet of government to smack people over the head. We're and I don't necessarily like that. And this is what their argument is. I don't necessarily like it. But this is the freaking world we now live in.
Right. Like the same people, the people who complain that Trump had too much power. I'm like, Trump has exactly as much power as Obama had.
Right.
And it's exactly as much power as Biden. How about none of them should have that much power?
Well, right. I agree. So the interesting question, and like I've been wrestling those with myself. So like obviously none of them should have that much power. Ron DeSantis shouldn't have that much power. Excuse me. To worry to make those kind of rules in Florida, especially against like a private corporation. However, Florida shouldn't have that much power in education at all. But now if the right's not wielding that power, the left is, and then they alienate the people.
I would make the distinction. It's more to me about like, it's not that I necessarily oppose a corporation having power over their own area. It's the fact that only the giant corporation gets to have power over their own. Like if you give Disney the power,
the Villages, Dan, the Villages does the same thing.
What is that?
It's like Del Boca Vista in Seinfeld.
Oh,
but it's like a real thing. Like you've never heard of the Villages?
I move for a full investigation.
Yeah, the Villages is like this huge, like 100,000 acre like retirement thing, and they have their own. They do their own infrastructure as well.
Oh, there's a lot of dirty money flowing through there.
Well, there's a lot of shit going on in Florida. I mean, like nobody wants to like
Atlantic City all over again. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody wants to pay for like making a swamp freaking inhabitable. You'd be like, no, you go do it. You figure it out. It's a swamp. Yeah. You figure it out. So yeah.
Right. Okay. I guess so. The question is like, why should Disney be allowed to have total governance over their own area,
right?
But other people don't, like because they're too small. You know. Now you're talking about. Right, so any rights that are given to giant corporations. Now, granted, they probably did that because they knew that Disney World was going to be a huge economic boon for Florida.
Sure,
and they made those choices.
Well, that and maybe because like Disney's like, well, we're going to put all this stuff here, and now in like the '60s, like you got to pay for this, and they're like, we don't want to pay for that, which made sense in the '60s for Florida. They're like, I don't.
What did they have in the '60s? They had NASA and stuff.
Well, yeah, but yeah, right. So this giant undeveloped area, because like what it was gonna like originally it was like Epcot was like a planned community. I didn't realize this.
It was like the city of the future.
Exactly, but it was gonna be like literally like a residence in like a city, and then that part of it fell through. Like, oh, let's do a theme park instead. When sell tequila inside this giant golf ball or something. So I don't know where all that came from, but I mean that was kind of the gist of it. But like, I mean that's the whole beginning, the whole genesis of it. But like all I'm saying is like I don't know what the efficacy of it is to not. If I were Florida, I see why they did that, because like if they don't do it when they're out of power, someone else is going to do it. Well, we got a visitor.
What you need?
That was like almost horror movie-esque as he came into the shadows with his hair over his face. It was very much like The Ring.
He does that.
I liked it. It was good. Is he still within earshot?
No. Oh, remember I turned this. It's only my ears.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Never mind. He's got to get a leather jacket on, tight jeans, circular glasses, let his hair go a little bit more, and he is Joey Ramone for Halloween. Let him do it. He's getting there.
Yeah.
Tall and lanky. No, all right. So, again, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. So, but like, I've been struck with the idea about, A, I don't like what they did to Disney. B, I get why they did it. And I see why people actually are applauding it, that you would be like, listen, dude, you're like a conservative small government person. You shouldn't want them to do this. You should want Disney to have that kind of autonomy. And just because Disney said something you don't like, that's really not
unless that autonomy means like tax breaks that the rest of us don't get.
Okay, yeah, I get that too, but like again, so like my favorite Ron Paul line is just like, oh, so during the debate, so like it's something like 50% of Americans don't pay taxes, Dr. Paul, or Congressman Paul. What are you going to do about that? He's like, well, we're 50% of the way there. I don't see what the problem is. Which is like, oh, that is such a good line. That's so good. I was like, yeah, that's the right attitude. But like, all I'm saying is the use of like wielding the ring of power, right? So
the ring of power.
Yeah, I'm against it. But like, if not wielding the ring of power means you're constantly getting your ass kicked, eventually you're going to be like, all right, so we gotta rise up and do something here, and it might be against your principles.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's an uncomfortable truth, which I'm not at a spot where I'm still thinking through all that. That's all I'm saying.
I agree. I have the same feelings. You know, it's similar to like it's what we were talking about with Elon to take it all the way back there. You know, like I like the idea that somebody who dislikes a lot of the people that I dislike and who represents a lot of ideals that I think are cool, right? Innovation, hard work, all these things that I don't do, right? Like he
But
is
you
one of-
aspire to it.
yeah, okay. So like, and like I said, for the most part, he seems like he's a pretty reasonable person. He doesn't seem like he's a power guy. So it's like I could see that as like a victory
Yeah.
on one side, but like maybe we don't need the whole world run by 5 people. I don't like the idea that it has to, like there's negative forces in the world. Like I don't like the idea that the only way to get around those is to have one person with $100 billion
Yeah.
buying up giant companies. It would be nice. I would prefer it if it was regular people choosing to be moral and fair with one another.
That would
You
be
know,
better.
that would be a more idealistic narrative. It would be nice if the world operated on the thing where like regular people being good to each other was more powerful than one man with $100 billion.
Yeah. But also, though, it is a.
He's not the hero the world needs. He's the hero
Right.
he deserves, or whatever.
Okay, so if he does what he says he's going to do, it is an inspiring thing for a dude who's got so much money to throw a large chunk of it at something that is an idealistic good. Like the idea of just leveling a speech platform to be more fair. That is a good thing. For in reality, and I don't care if there's 80 million people who disagree
Yes,
with that.
taken in isolation is definitely good. I mean,
Right.
I have a hard time
That's all.
seeing the downsides.
Yeah.
The paranoid part of my brain is like, okay, but there always is a downside, and what is it?
Yeah. No,
don't
and there's definitely risks of obviously with the going. So like if it was the opposite route, if it was like I don't know, I'm not Glenn Beck over here, like George Soros, like I couldn't even tell you why I'm supposed to hate George Soros. But if he were to buy Twitter,
We'll say it was
feel
Bill
like
Gates.
it would definitely be a negative. Bill Gates is a
Right.
dick.
Bill Gates,
No.
because this is a real world example, right? Because Bill Gates is
Yeah.
the type of person who would do that. And he's
Yeah.
clearly connected to all kinds of stuff.
Text. Oh yeah,
right?
on the text
It's
side.
I mean, it's a miracle he has. I mean, who knows
That's
what
a
the
really
connection-
good point.
Him and
He's
Epstein.
He's very unconnected to social media.
Right. So,
Given his
I mean,
background.
I have some. I mean, up till recently, I thought Bill Gates was just like the ultimate nerd, like because I heard all these things like he gives a lot of money to charity, and like
Sends
I literally,
nuts to
work
Africa.
with Microsoft products all day long, right? So,
Well,
but
even
like
everyone else,
the
man.
connection with he wrote on Epstein's jet, and then he's been hooked in with like the vaccines and the NIH and all the WHO, all that. That guy knows some stuff.
He's pregnant. It's weird. Like I don't know what's going on with Bill Gates.
Maybe he's transitioning.
He might be. Have you seen the picture of him next to like the pregnant man emoji that's like on the Apple thing? Oh god, if I can find it. If you haven't seen it, it's glorious. But yeah, right. So like, yeah, right. If Bill Gates were to purchase Twitter, I would be weary. But
Maybe
then
that's
again-
how everybody else is viewing Elon. I mean, from their
No, but then-
perspective,
but
they
think
think
about it,
Elon's connected to all this shady stuff too.
I would only be weary insofar as to be like, well, there's weird connections there and I don't like it. But then again, you know what it is? It's Twitter, Dan. I don't have to use it. Like it's
I know,
not,
yeah.
It's not an integral part of my freaking life, man.
Question: what's the libertarian position on monopolies? Should the government be involved in trying to prevent monopolies? Because monopolies,
Bad.
they're generally considered to be negative things, right? Because they stifle innovation, they stifle competition.
Yes.
But it's also like there's a freedom aspect to monopoly. Like, hey, look, I built this company and I bought everybody. What are you going to tell me not to do?
Correct.
Is that like one of those things that like people schism over?
I don't think there's too much of a schism. I think in general, I'm going to talk and try to click here at the same time. Oh no, can we not upload pictures anymore? I don't know if we can.
Or is it that a lot of part of the reason the monopolies are bad is because they usually get that way via the support of the government?
They get their way via support of the government. Yeah, the general quick cliff notes on libertarian monopolies is they only exist for a very short amount of time, if they exist. And generally, when they exist for a long time, is because of governments creating barriers to entry. So, like,
Right.
right. So, like,
In a normal, ideal environment, you would have a monopoly. And if the monopoly existed and it became stale, that would create a situation rife for competition to swoop in.
Correct. Yeah, a natural monopoly is very, 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 very hard to hold for a long time. Now, you
That
could be
makes
like,
sense.
you could literally be like a Rockefeller. I think it's Rockefeller. Who was who was the oil guy? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The oil barons, one of them, whichever one it was. So like he would he made his money by doing ferries from like New York, New Jersey up to New England, right? Up and down the rivers and stuff. But he also he made a ton of money off the oil from there. But when he got competition would come in, he would cut his fares to like zero. He basically would do them for free to drive out his competition. He would purchase up their stuff, purchase up their materials, purchase up their boats, and then jack the rates back up. But not like jack the rates back up where it was not impractical to travel, like because everyone was traveling on his ferries because it made sense. Like it was economically viable for everybody. So his predatory behavior was a boon to the consumer, if that makes sense. He would be like, you're coming in to buy some stuff, I'm going to lower my prices so freaking low where you can't compete, and then I'm going to dominate the market again. And then my prices go back up. But it wasn't like the prices went back up where people were like, oh, F this, I can't ride this boat anymore. And also another guy would do that with the oil prices. So like he would literally just either would he stop? No, he would do something where he would manipulate the market so the oil prices drop so low, buy all of his competitors' oil at a very low price because he was a billionaire in like the 1840s, which means he was a trillionaire. So like he would just buy everybody's stock, hold it for himself, and then the prices would rise and he would sell it. So, but again, like he was selling it at rates that people were buying it and they were happy to buy it. So yeah, it's not cut and dry like monopoly bad. Competition always good. I mean, and that's usually the case. But like,
I guess it could be the point that at the point that a monopoly becomes so large that it becomes indistinguishable from government. Right.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So the idea is that anything of that size is probably a negative.
Right? I would think things
which is what we talked about before, right? You got these corporations that are basically the size of government. So it makes more sense to stop thinking about them as like a mom and pop private business that should make their own choices and more about, no, you're the size of a government. So let's look at you like a government. Right.
Yeah, maybe
because
so.
and because all of these things are filled with human beings, and all human beings are susceptible to corruption, to abuse of power, etc.
But that's even on the smallest of levels, man. Like the guy who owns a corner gas station can be a manipulative prick and like jack his prices around and
he just has less reach, right? There's only so much
smaller reach. So I don't know if the reach makes a difference. I mean, maybe it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just wondering if that's the dividing line you need to make. I mean, it's like, again, I would say like if Twitter was so bad, I would just stop using Twitter. Like I'm not worried about the social. I mean, I'm worried about the social implications. I understand the social implications of Twitter, but like how many Twitter users are there in the United States? Not that like compared to the population, it's not the majority of people even use Twitter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I forget what the number is, but it's not 300 million people. How many Americans use Twitter? 1 in 5. Okay, a fifth.
60, 65, 70.
Yeah, less than the portions of people that vote for a Democrat or Republican every year use Twitter. So I don't know. It's just it's certainly an influence, but it's not like an outsized influence. And it doesn't, I don't know, just because something's on Twitter or not on Twitter, it doesn't mean. And so really, again, okay, so here's the whole concern. The whole concern about Twitter is because the influence it has over U.S. elections. U.S. elections are only concerned for people because when the person in power you don't like is in power, they do things that harm you in your mind. So again, back to the only, like, that's the wedge. The government is the wedge here. Like, if government had way less power, nobody would give a shit what you put on Twitter, and they wouldn't care.
There we go.
Back to you. Now, again, getting to that point is next to impossible. So, or maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I mean, it ultimately comes down to, if everybody would just focus on trying to be nice, and trying to not only to each other but to themselves, and nice in a way that is contagious. You'd have a trickle up effect.
Yeah.
But people aren't.
Sure.
They want to offload the responsibility of being nice to a third party. Right?
Oh, they certainly do. Yep.
I don't want to spread, positive vibes and positive energy and charity and cooperation to my neighbors. I have the government to do that for me.
Yeah. Right. It's like it's those goofy memes where it's just like Jesus on the hill, like his old school painting, like doing like the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
And like there's like on the bottom, it's like, so Jesus, what you're saying is we give our taxes to the Romans and they feed the poor. He's like, okay, I'm gonna start over from the beginning. Let me know where I lose you. Okay, no, it's just like, okay.
No, there's one that was like, it was a picture of Jesus, and he was like, "Love all of those who are your enemies." And some guy from the back is like, "Even Gary?" And he's like, "Yes, even Gary." And then the guy's like, "Fuck you, Gary." And he's like, "Oh God." It's something like that, but it's really funny.
I mean, it's hilarious. I'm laughing right now. I can't even see it, and I think it's funny. Well, either way, Elon Musk is not going to save the world, but it's pretty interesting what's going on.
He's less likely to destroy it than a lot of other people who have $100 billion.
I will grant you that one for sure. Yeah.
It's like democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other ones.
Except for all the other ones, yeah. That's a great quote, and it's true. It's very true.
If I had to choose one of the most powerful people in the world to buy a corporation, I can't think of anybody else that I like more. I mean, Bezos,
yeah,
or
anyone
Zuckerberg. That guy's barely
anyone
human
I
as it
hate
is.
less. There's no one I hate less than Elon Musk, and I don't really hate Elon Musk at all. So
I think he's kind of cool. I mean, somebody could fill me in, man, because I don't know. Like, I don't understand why people hate him. Like, what has he done? Has he made like some sort of misogynist comments? As he's like screwed over an ex-wife or abandoned a child at some point? I mean, I don't know about.
He did name those kids really dumb names. That was a poor decision, but
they got so much money, they'll be fine. You know what I mean? They're all driving Teslas to prom. I mean, they'll be all right.
They're good to go. Yeah, they're good to go. Now, I guess the only thing I can really surmise is that he's a billionaire, so people hate billionaires. There's just a built-in bias there. Yeah. And then he's kind of trolly. No, I know you're reasonable.
I dislike people who are shitty to each other.
Right, but like
billionaires
the idea,
or thousandaires.
But he's trolly on Twitter, and he's confrontational. And if he's confrontational and trolly against the things you don't like, you're going to see him as a billionaire who's trying to wield power in an overarching way. So. I guess that's my only take, man. Like I other than that, I haven't seen him say anything objectionable, like in a moral sense. Just like you could just be like, I disagree with that dude. And really, like even with like Jeff Bezos, I mean, maybe I just disagree with him about some stuff. I don't even really hate Jeff Bezos.
He had an integral hand in creating the most richest woman in the world.
His ex-wife?
Yeah. So it's like. He's like, hey, I mean, you could spin that into a thing. You'd be like, look, I guess want you guys to understand something here. Nobody has created more female-owned riches than me. So
this is true. And listen, man, we need more African American representation in tech. So we got a CEO of a major tech company, one of the biggest companies in the world. It's a day to celebrate. George Floyd would be proud. St. George, he's.
You got to throw in the cancellation right at the end.
His fist is up in heaven. Yeah, but we're not going to cancel anymore, Dan. Elon Musk is in control.
Oh yeah.
Not on
change.
YouTube, change. Not on YouTube though.
It's like in South Park when Obama got elected. Did you ever see that episode?
Yep.
I thought that was going to be changed. They're all like partying in the street. There's like toilet paper everywhere. What happened to the change, man?
I miss South Park. I don't have time to go through all the South Parks I haven't watched.
I'm sure they'll do a good one about this whole thing.
I'd imagine so. So many episodes.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Been an hour. That was fun.
Yeah, I'm out.
Good night, sir.
Exit music.
Here it goes in the banner, and that's I lost it. We are on the right thing. I got off there because I was trying to find a picture. I was gonna go for like another 5 seconds. I didn't know how long you're gonna hold that.